Hey everybody, I hope you guys are having a good week so far. Hope everything is going your way, and I just want to come before you tonight to share a couple things with you. First thing, don't forget that Sunday we have our third Summer Splash session. It's going to be at Grayson and Ben's house. It'll start around 6:30, and it will end at 9 p.m. That night. We also have our church-wide fellowship that's going to be at the Heflin Lake, the watershed. So make sure you guys come out for that as well. Also, Sunday school starts at 9 a.m. on Sunday mornings, and then, of course, our worship service is followed at 10. So we want to make sure that you get to all those events like we there at our church. So tonight, I want to go over one thing that's I've been thinking about a little bit over the past couple days or so about sharing, and I kind of just stumbled across it. But after our Summer Splash lesson on Sunday afternoon at Sarah's house, again, thank you, Sarah, for letting us come out there. But we started off talking about our identity and kind of looking at Paul and seeing what he started out as and excuse me, how he figured out his identity in Christ and what he was supposed to do, and then we figure out the purpose of his life about being a light bearer and being somebody that the community could count on, and somebody that was shedding the gospel on the community, and that really struck a chord in me as far as talking to you guys about unity and how we need to come together. Don't get confused about this message as far as talking about our whole country. I'm trying to minute this a little bit and get it down onto a grade level, a school level, a community type level. But if you have your Bibles with you, I want to read from the book of Acts, chapter 2, verses 42 and 46. And right here we're seeing the disciples after Jesus had ascended into heaven, and we find out a little bit about them, and we get a lesson right here in just a few verses from the disciples and how important it is to be unified and to be a community. But I want to start in verse 42. Acts chapter 2, verses 42. It says, "And they steadfastly preserved." Excuse me, let me start over. "And they steadfastly persevered, devoting themselves constantly to the instruction and fellowship of the apostles, to the breaking of bread and prayer. And a sense of awe came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were performed through the apostles." Verse 44, "And all who believed were united, and together they had everything in common. They sold their possessions and distributed the price among all, according as any had needed. And day after day," verse 46, "they regularly assembled in the temple with united purpose, and in their homes they broke bread. They partook of their food and with gladness and simplicity and generous hearts." Let me go ahead and read one more verse, 47, just the beginning of it. "Constantly praising God and being in favor and goodwill with all people. And the Lord kept adding," all people. When we look at our community sometimes, and we look at friends, and we think, man, I really don't need to, hang out with this group, and they're so bad and so wrong, and the things that they're doing. But I've been thinking about this for a couple days. But what if you could be the light bearer in that group? What if you loved on that group enough that they saw the works in you, and they saw Christ through your works, and how you carried yourself and conducted yourself, and they saw that, and then they wanted that? I talk all the time about when you give that corn away, how it's a burning coal right over somebody's head. And the Bible tells us that when we witness to somebody and we talk to somebody, or just give them a simple, that a boy or that a girl, or hey, I'm praying for you, or I'm thinking about you, it really stirs inside them and really burns that fire. And when we look at verses 44 through 46, it says, all the believers were together and they had everything in common. We think of that as a community. God made us in a way that we have to enjoy our community, and God made us in a way that we can't, necessarily be by ourselves, because He didn't make us that way. He said that it's not good for a human being to experience the oppression or the isolating aloneness that wounds our heart. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, God says that it's not good for a man to be alone. And that's why, God made Eve with Adam, because they don't come by themselves. God made one human being and said, these human beings, they can't come by themselves. You and I were created for community. And I think that's why this topic for me is so important, and it needs to be important to you, because you and I were made to have, by God, we were made to have those intimate relationships. We were meant to serve people lavishly, meaning, we were meant to give up things of our own to give back to others, because they don't have as much, or they don't have what we have. And God uses those things and those talents to glorify Him in those moments when we give those back. And you see football camps and kids on the street selling lemonade, and a guy giving another man his shoes off his feet because he don't have anything to walk on. Simple things, but yet when we give those away, it's so profound and so beautiful for those people. We have to share the stuff that we have, and we have to help to as a Christian to help build the lives of the people around us. There are people that you have to have people to who you can entrust your secrets, and to laugh with, to pray with, to praise with, to cry with. And many of you guys are experiencing that every day in your groups and your best friends. And some of us haven't really found that mold yet, or haven't really found that group. But that's the prayer that I want for our group, is to be unified and to be together, so that we can share the gospel as a group, and we can share it together. Because it's more about us sharing it by ourselves. It's about showing, well, not only did God do this in my life, but yet He did this in my life, and He did this in X, Y, and Z's life too. When we can get that track record together as a youth group, and we can be centered around God and centered around the gospel and centered around Jesus Christ, rather than being centered around a game or being centered around a message or being centered around a drama, but yet centered around God and centered around Jesus. That's what our group's goal ought to be, is centered and unified against, unified with God and unified with Jesus. And once we can get all these, people to come to our church and experience our group, it's not about who's there. It's not about who's getting to see the gospel or hear the gospel, but it's about all of us doing it and loving on one another. There's a weird truth about being a human being. We long for community, but yet at the same time we also run from it. It's been said that when humankind fell from grace, we inherited, not only a tendency to hide from God, but a tendency to hide from each other as well. Sometimes we kind of get wrapped up in conflicting desires, and we struggle with that. Or, I want to be with this group, but yet I don't want to let God down. Or, I want to do this, but I really need to be at church. And we constantly feel that struggle with conflicting desires. And, on the hand, we desire to be close to one another, but on the other hand, we want to be an arm's length away from this person because they kind of get on my nerves, and sometimes it's she's over there doing that and I don't want to be with her, or he's over there doing that and I don't want to be with him, and but we all need to be unified together. At times we've kind of taken advantage of that. And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus or anything, but I'm just using this, as a broad example. But I think when we do that, when we have those conflicting relationships, it takes away from the impediment to the true community of our church, and it takes away from the true community in our group and one another, and it isolates us from one another. When I said insulate us, I meant, when you build a building, you put insulation in the wall to keep the moisture away from each side and to keep the sound out from each side. And sometimes it's the same way in our life, where we get an arm's length away from somebody. That's almost like our insulation zone. We're isolated, but yet we're insulated in that zone because, we don't want to get out of that zone because it's just awkward and it's weird. But do you know that sometimes that person is begging for you to ask them to come to church, and they're begging for you. They're not going to tell you, but they're begging for you in their mind, in their heart, for you to ask them to come back to church, or you ask them to make it right. They're begging. But sometimes we find ourselves isolated from that person and scared to make that decision because it is hard. To do that. Jesus prayed in John chapter 17, 22 through 23, that we might be one. Even as he and the Father is one. It says, I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be as one as we are one. I in them and you in me. May they be brought to complete unity, to let the world know that you sent me and have loved me, then even as you have that you've loved them, and even as you have loved me. I think sometimes when we don't get unified and when we don't have that unity in our group, and that division is there between individuals and the group, or the group and that individual, is it hinders from that person. It hinders both people from their mind being focused on the gospel. Because when you come in that room and you look around and this person is not there, you tend to think, well, where are they at? Or why are they not here? Or hope it's something I didn't say, or hope it was something that I did say, or we have all these thoughts, and that person, is not here. And yet you're thinking about it, and you're missing the gospel, you're missing the message, because your mind is in another place. And then that person is missing the gospel entirely because they're not there because of what may be going on between the two of you. Those barriers, it's like a cancer, and it's like an infection, and it takes us over because we have that isolation between you and that person, and it's really unhealthy. The disciples, they ate together. They constantly broke bread with one another. They constantly were together, and the only way that our group is going to be successful, and the only way that our group is going to excel, and the only way that we're going to win hearts over for Jesus, and that we can get more and more people in our chairs and our pews in our church, is that we come together as a community, and we come together and we're unified as Christians, and we're unified as believers, because that's what's important, and that's what's going to make the difference between our group sharing the gospel and that person coming to see Jesus. Our purpose in life is to be placed here on earth to love God, to honor Jesus, and to get as many lives into the kingdom as possible. A lot of times we tend to forget that, and a lot of times we miss that point, and we forget about who we are, and we forget about things in our life, and we forget about what's important because we have all this stuff going on. We forget about X, Y, and Z, and so from from being here or being there, and we kind of run from the conflict. Jesus went to the cross with one thing in mind, and that was me and you. And he did it in a way so that we could be unified in him, and we could be unified together. And that's why we call each other brother and sister. It's not because we're of the same blood, but yet we're of the same kindred spirit. We're both called to live that life that's focused on him. And when we accept Jesus, when we accept that in our lives, we're part of that brotherhood and we're part of that sisterhood. So pray for those people that are away from this group. Pray for those people that are not unified in our group, and pray for this group so that we can come together. We're doing great, guys. You guys are awesome. You guys are amazing. It's so easy for me to be your pastor because you guys are awesome. But we still have some things as a group that we need to work on. And one of those things is that, we need to all be of one accord. We've got, recent graduates that are going off to college. We've got kids changing grades and going to be introduced to new friends and, out of their comfort zone. And it's not about what you do with your grades, and, it's not about, how many touchdowns you score, but it literally is about what you do for the kingdom. I'm not telling you guys not to strive and work hard and not make good grades, because that's important. And athletics and, extracurricular activities and band and all that stuff's important. But the kingdom is important too. And I don't want you guys to lose sight of the kingdom. And I don't want you to take your eyes off heaven. And I want you to go into this school year and coming out of this summer, and the focus on your mind needs to be able to, that your body and your brain and your eyes are focused and fixated upon heavenly things and not things of this world, because the world is going to pass away, but heaven remains the same forever and ever and ever. What a glorious day that will be when we can be reunited, keyword united, in heaven with our aunts and uncles and moms and dads and brothers and sisters and grandparents and cousins, and be reunited with them in the glory of Jesus Christ and being able to honor him. But we need to find that unity. We need to get united amongst our group so that we can take this message and we can take this gospel out into the community so we can win more hearts for Christ. You guys, not me, not Carly, not the church, but you guys are the reason why we've had 7 people get saved in the last 4 or 5 months. And you guys are the reason why we've had 5 of 6 of those get baptized. It's because of you. And I couldn't be more grateful for you guys and the love that you've shown us, and the openness and the willingness that you gave us to come in to be your pastor. And we love you guys, and I just want to pray and I hope that our unity can continue to grow, and that we can unify together, and we can get all these people into our church and into this group so they can hear and experience the gospel and experience that encounter with Jesus Christ. So remember, as you go out the rest of this week, remember unity. Remember those people that you have been insulated and isolated from. Reach out to them. Pray with them. Pray for them. Mend those broken relationships. And let's get those people back into our group. Love you guys. Thank you so much for everything you've done. Thank you so much for this group. Praying for you guys constantly. Praying for you daily. Can't wait to see you again on Sunday. Love you. God bless you. Peace.